I never planned on falling for a woman who ran an honor garden out of her front yard. But life has a strange way of pulling you into places you did not expect. My name is Alex Morgan. I am 24, born and raised just outside Columbus, Ohio, in a town where everyone knows your last name and most people assume your future before you do. Around here, the safe path is college, an office job, maybe a move to Cleveland or Chicago. I never fit that picture. I liked working with my hands. I like dirt under my nails, and the quiet pride that comes from seeing real results at the end of a long day. That is why I started Green Line Yard Services. It was nothing fancy. Just me, an old Ford van with rust along the sides, a mower that coughed before it started, and a lot of stubborn hope. I did lawn care, trimming, gardening, and general maintenance for anyone who needed it. At first, my clients were neighbors, older folks who could not push a mower anymore, and friends of my mom. They paid in cash, sometimes in food, sometimes with a thank you that meant more than the money. At night, I slept in a small apartment above my parents' garage, staring at the ceiling and wondering if I was making a mistake. But every morning, the fresh air and the sound of birds pulled me back into it. This work felt real. That summer started with a heat wave. The kind where the air feels thick and the pavement shimmers. I was checking my mower blades when my phone rang. Unknown number. I wiped my hands and answered. The voice on the other end was calm, steady, and warm in a quiet way. "Hello, Alex. This is Rachel Evans. My neighbor gave me your number. My yard is a mess. Overgrown grass and some rodent problems. Are you available?" I stood up straighter, like she could see me. I told her I could come by the next morning. She sent the address right away. It was in the nicer part of town, with big lots and old houses that hinted at money without showing off. That night, I made sure everything was ready. I sharpened the blades, cleaned the van, and put on my cleanest polo. I wanted to look like someone she could trust. I arrived early the next morning. The sun was just coming up, light spilling over the trees. The house stopped me in my tracks. A white Victorian with a wide porch and fruit trees lining the driveway. But what really caught my eye was a wooden stand near the curb. It looked like a sturdy lemonade stand, stacked with fresh produce. Tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, apples, potatoes. A chalkboard sign leaned against it. It said, "Honor Stand. Pay what you can, or nothing at all. If you need it, take it." I watched as an elderly couple stopped. The woman picked tomatoes. The man dropped coins into a glass jar and left a small note. Something about it felt warm, almost unreal. Then, the front door opened. Rachel Evans stepped out. She was in her early 40s, tall, calm, with brown hair tied back and eyes that were sharp but kind. She wore jeans and a faded t-shirt. No effort to impress, yet she carried herself with confidence. She walked toward me and held out her hand. "You must be Alex." Her handshake was firm. Her voice matched the one from the phone. She led me to the backyard, and I understood right away why she had called. The place was beautiful but wild. Fruit trees heavy with apples and pears, rows of vegetables growing everywhere. But the grass was high, weeds were choking the beds, and small holes from rodents dotted the soil. "I grow all this for the stand out front," she explained. "I sell it cheap or give it away. People around here need it." I nodded, impressed. She talked about neighbors, seniors, families, just getting by. About the honor jar. About trust. "What if someone takes without paying?" I asked. She shrugged with a soft smile. "Then they probably need it more than I need the money. I gotta work right away." As the mower cut through the tall grass, the smell of fresh green filled the air. People stopped by the stand. Kids on bikes. An old man with a cane. Rachel waved to everyone. The place felt alive. When I finished, sweat soaked through my shirt, she came over and patted my shoulder. "Treat it like your own yard," she said. "Careful, though. I get attached to hardworking guys fast." I laughed, awkward and surprised. Her words stayed with me. Driving away that evening, I looked back at the porch light glowing and the honor stand by the road. Something about that place pulled at me. I knew I would be back. And I was. 3, sometimes 4 times a week. What started as a job slowly became part of my routine. Rachel's garden was not like other lawns. It was practical, generous, and open. She taught me things while we worked. How to spot good soil. How to protect roots. Why patience mattered. We talked on the porch after work. About her divorce. About my doubts. She listened. Really listened. One rainy afternoon, we got soaked packing up tools, laughing under the porch, awning like kids. She thanked me for staying when most people would have left. That night, driving home in the rain, I realized something had changed. I was not just working for a client anymore. I was slowly becoming part of her world. The routine settled in faster than I expected. Rachel's place became the one job I never rushed through. I showed up early, before the sun climbed too high, unloading tools while the neighborhood was still quiet. She usually had coffee ready on the porch and asked about my van or the traps I had set the last time. We worked side by side, not talking much at first, just moving in sync. Over time, the silence felt comfortable. Her garden taught me things no job ever had. This was not about perfect edges or spotless lawns. It was about growth, balance, and patience. She showed me how to stake tomato plants so they would not snap in heavy wind, how to rotate crops so the soil would not burn out. She never talked down to me. She explained things like she trusted me to understand, and that meant more than she probably knew. The honor stand became my favorite part of the day. People stopped by constantly. A young mom with a stroller would pick cucumbers and drop $1 in the jar. Construction workers grabbed apples on lunch break. Every morning around 9, Mrs. Mary Thompson showed up with her walker. She always took 2 carrots, an apple, and some greens, then carefully placed a dime in the jar. One day she looked at me and said I was doing good work, and not to let the rats win. I carried that with me the rest of the day. Sometimes kids came by with nothing to give. Rachel never stopped them. One boy left a crumpled drawing instead of money, stick figures, a big sun, and a garden. Rachel smiled like it was worth $100. After work, Rachel often asked me to stay for tea. We sat on the porch swing as the sun dipped low. She told me about her divorce, how her ex had left her feeling hollow and unsure if she mattered anymore. The garden saved her. Planting something and giving it away reminded her she still had purpose. I told her about my fear of failing, of being the guy who never made it past mowing lawns. She looked at me and said ladders were not for everyone. Some people build roots instead. One afternoon, a storm rolled in fast. Rain turned the yard into mud. I tried to pack up quickly, but Rachel came out with an umbrella, laughing as we both got soaked. We covered the stand together, clothes sticking to our skin, laughing like kids. Inside, she handed me a towel and thanked me for not leaving. That moment stuck with me longer than it should have. Then came the morning everything changed. I pulled up like I always did, coffee in hand, already thinking about what needed trimming. Something felt wrong the second I parked. The honor stand was crooked. The chalkboard sign was smeared. When I stepped closer, my chest tightened. The garden was destroyed. Tomato plants ripped out, vines crushed into the dirt. Traps smashed and thrown aside. The fence had a gap torn open like someone had attacked it with a tool. On the chalkboard, someone had written words that made my stomach burn. A message about trash in neighborhoods that did not belong together. Rachel was already there, kneeling in the dirt, holding a broken tomato stem. Her face was pale. Her eyes were red, but she was not crying, just staring. She told me vandals had come in the night. Neighbors had complained before, said the stand brought the wrong people. One had warned her to shut it down. She did not think they would go this far. Anger flooded me. I wanted to call the cops. She shook her head. No proof. No cameras. She did not want to escalate things in a small town where everyone talks. We stood there in silence, looking at the damage. I told her we would fix it. All of it. She hesitated, then nodded. We worked all day. I ran to the hardware store for fencing and supplies. We patched what we could, replanted what survived. Sweat burned my eyes. My back ached. But Rachel never complained. She worked with focus and quiet strength. Word spread. Kids wandered over and asked to help. Mrs. Thompson showed up with seeds and told Rachel not to quit. A mom brought sandwiches. A retiree lent tools. It was not a crowd, but it felt like one. People helping without being asked. That evening, as we sat on the porch, exhausted and dirty, Rachel spoke softly. She said after her divorce, she had felt just like this garden, torn up, alone. She said my showing up every day made her feel safe again. I did not know what to say. I just stayed. The online talk started that night. Some people defended her. Others mocked her. When I texted her angry messages I saw, she told me to let them talk. She said we would prove them wrong by keeping on. And that was when I realized something. This was no longer just her fight. It was ours. The days after, the vandalism blurred together. We were sore, tired, and running on stubborn will. But little by little, the garden started to breathe again. New fencing went up. Fresh soil covered the scars. Seedlings took the place of what had been torn out. Each morning I showed up earlier than usual, half expecting more damage, but the yard stayed quiet. Then the community stepped in harder than either of us expected. It started with one neighbor bringing a wheelbarrow of soil. Then another showed up with seedlings. A group of high school kids came with gloves and rakes, saying their teacher gave them credit for helping. Someone brought a cooler of lemonade. Another dropped off sandwiches. By midday, Rachel's yard was full of people working, laughing and talking like it was a neighborhood gathering instead of a repair job. Rachel stood in the middle of it all, stunned. I saw her eyes shine as she handed out tools and directions. She kept thanking everyone, but people waved her off. They told her the garden mattered, that it helped more people than she realized. The honor stand got a new chalkboard that day. Someone wrote, "What you give comes back. Pay what you can." Online, the tone changed. Support poured in. A small fundraiser popped up without Rachel asking for it. Even a few neighbors who had complained before showed up with quiet apologies and bags of fertilizer. Rachel met them with calm grace, never shaming them. After the last volunteer left that evening, Rachel and I sat on the porch in the fading light. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she told me she had been thinking about my business. She said Green Line had real potential. She wanted to invest. Not as charity, but as a partner. Better equipment. More jobs. And in return, we would help build more community gardens like hers. I was stunned. I told her I was just a guy with a mower. She smiled and said I was more than that. She said she had watched how I worked, how I showed up, how I cared. I said yes. From there, everything grew fast. I hired my first part-timer. We helped set up small gardens for senior centers and schools. Rachel handled paperwork and planning. I handled the work. The honor stand became a model others wanted to copy. But what changed the most was us. We spent more time together, not just working, but talking, sitting on the porch after dark, sharing quiet dinners. I noticed the way she laughed with kids and how gentle she was with Mrs. Thompson. I caught myself watching her when she thought no one was looking. One evening, she read me a letter from a single mom who said the stand had kept her family fed during a hard time. Rachel's voice shook. She wondered out loud if what she was doing was enough, if she could really keep going alone. Without thinking, I took her hand. I told her she was not alone. I told her I was not going anywhere. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Her fingers tightened around mine, but she did not pull away. We sat there as the sky darkened, the garden quiet around us. In that moment, I knew I was falling for her. Not fast or reckless, slow and deep, like roots finding good soil. I did not say it yet, but my heart already had. A year passed faster than I ever thought possible. When I looked back, it felt like my life had split into two parts, before the garden and after it. Rachel's place became something people talked about far beyond our neighborhood. The honor garden showed up in local papers. People drove in from nearby towns just to see it. Green Line yard services grew right along with it. I bought a second van, hired more help. We built new community gardens at schools, senior centers, and small food banks. Each one had the same chalkboard message and the same simple trust system. The original stand at Rachel's never slowed down. The jar filled with coins, notes, drawings, and small gifts. Not because people had to give, but because they wanted to. Kindness had a way of multiplying when you let it. Rachel and I never made a big announcement about us. It happened naturally. I stayed for dinners. Then I stayed the night. Then I just stayed. People noticed, of course. Mrs. Thompson teased us. Neighbors smiled knowingly. A few whispered about the age difference, but Rachel never let it shake her. She said love did not ask for permission or paperwork. One evening in early summer, after a long day of harvesting carrots, we sat on the porch steps watching the sky turn orange. The garden was quiet, fireflies blinking over the beds we had saved together. Rachel turned to me and asked a question that caught me off guard. If something happened to me, would you keep this going? I told her yes without hesitation. I told her the garden had saved me too, that before her, I was drifting. Now I had purpose. Roots. That was when I finally said it out loud. I told her I loved her. I told her she made me believe in building something that lasts. She cried then. Quiet tears. She told me she loved me too and never thought she would feel that way again. Not after being broken for so long. We held each other under the porch light, surrounded by the soft sounds of summer. No rush, no promises shouted into the night. Just two people choosing to stay. Life settled into a steady rhythm after that. Mornings with coffee on the porch, afternoons working side by side, evenings walking through the garden, checking traps, talking about plans. Sometimes we talked about the past, sometimes about the future. Most nights we just enjoyed the quiet. At the town fair that fall, Rachel introduced me as her partner in business and in life. People clapped. No judgment, just warmth. Looking back, our story was never perfect. It was messy and rooted in hard work, loss, and second chances. But that was what made it real. She once warned me she got attached to hard-working guys fast. She was right. And when she did, I stayed.